Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Critical Podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Good, and joining me once again is my friend, my pal, my buddy, my nerd in arms from, I'm taking this from you, from Castle Laing right now, Cory Laing. Cory, how are you doing?
Well, we did 3 tries on the desktop. I'm having massive internet problems tonight, so I apologize for that. This is the 4th try. Now I'm on my phone, my trusty phone. So far, it's going well, so thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, the whole motto and mantra of the channel, of my life, Cory, is adapt and overcome, and that is exactly what you have done tonight, so well done, sir. Well done. Tonight, we're actually going to be talking about a few different things, but we're going to start by talking about The Gray Man. Yes, The Gray Man, a film that premiered on Netflix just recently. Now, before we get into all the spoilers, which is basically just breaking down action sequences for us, because that's what I really want to talk about today, we're going to talk spoiler-free for a little bit, just for people who are on the fence. They're like, what the heck is the Gray Man? I've never heard about it. Why is he gray? Is he always in gray, like a suit or something? Sounds kind of like a superhero or something, but no, it's not that.
Like Silver Surfer. It's not Silver Surfer.
Exactly, not Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
Or is it? No, he's not. No. Silver Surfer origin story. No. But this is actually, Cory's got a prop. Do you have, he's got, no, look at this. Oh, yes. Yes, you were showing off is this like a limited edition Silver Surfer action figure?
I always conveniently have something relevant nearby.
Beautiful.
So I'm sorry.
Dude, that's
I
a great
apologize.
superpower. No, don't be sorry. Are you kidding me? That's wonderful.
Yeah. Now, these are the Marvel Legends repos. They're reproduces of like old toys from the 90s.
Oh, yeah. I thought when you said repos, I was like, oh, did you go and repossess those from somebody?
Yeah, I used to be a repo guy.
Nice.
And I picked up this Chevy pickup truck, and it was full of Silver Surfer toys.
Nice, dude. That's very good. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for the audio listeners to be like, what are they talking about? No, we're talking about The Gray Man. The Gray Man, not Silver Surfer. He's coming down the pipeline. Don't worry about that. But so this is a film, Cory, that came out limited release in theaters and then came out to Netflix as a Netflix original, which was a $200 million budgeted action thriller starring Chris Evans and Ryan Gosling, directed by the Russo brothers for their fame in, a few of these Marvel films like Captain America Winter Soldier, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, amongst other things. Now, Cory, we kind of talked about this a little bit beforehand, and you were kind of filling me in on the history of it. After Endgame came out in 2019, they went right into The Gray Man. For the most part, it sounds like. And obviously, we've had some things happen in the world since then, and now it's just coming out. But this was like their big next thing, and Netflix is like, hey, you guys, you know what you're doing, so come on over here, and let's have a little bit of fun. And I gotta be honest with you, man, I didn't really know a lot about this at all, because it's like a brand new thing altogether, like totally new. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And you kind of brought it up to me and you're like, you should check this thing out because I would love to talk about it. So before we, like I said, dive fully in, where's your head at on The Gray Man now, man? Because I would love to, now that you finally finished all of it, because I kind of talked to you like halfway through it. You're like, I wanted to finish it. Where are you at? Spoiler free, of course.
Well, I have to say, when you were talking about the Russos jumping into Gray Man, a thought just popped into my head. Apparently, that's actually incorrect. They did a movie called Cherry with Tom Holland in 2021.
Oh.
And it was about a soldier coming back with PTSD. Do you remember this movie?
I think so, now that you bring it up.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
so
cool.
Anyways, so apparently they had time to do this movie called Cherry in between Endgame and Gray Man. Okay. Anyways, fun little fact. But yeah, this movie, I remember hearing about it probably in 2020 when Netflix greenlit this, and then fast forward to late 2021, early 2022, Netflix put out like a highlight reel for some upcoming stuff.
Okay.
And I remember seeing that little shot of Ryan Gosling on the train with the gun in his hand, and his face is all messed up. And I'm like, whoa, that looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Fast forward to like literally a week ago, I was joking with someone at QCTV about this, at how silly and over the top it looked, and people were labeling it as like a Jason Bourne ripoff or a Mission Impossible ripoff. Started getting some bad press, unfortunately. You start hearing things about like toxic masculinity, and I was like, oh my God, this sounds like a mess. And it was surprising because the Russos have such a great reputation for making awesome blockbuster action movies. So it was very surprising to hear the movie getting kind of kicked to the curb. And then I finally got to see it. So here we are.
Yeah, and it sounds like the consensus that I've been seeing a little bit online is that maybe critically not as loved, but audience seems to enjoy it a bit more. That seems to be a lot, like, happening a lot these days. I never know though, Cory, because these sites, I never know exactly what to believe anymore. I can only believe what I've seen with my own eyes. And I'll be honest with you, Cory, I really like this movie. I really, I really did, because when we talked about it, you were like, "Yeah, it's an action movie, and it's unapologetically an action movie. It's not like, they'll do the action once in a while here or there. It's like, no. Action is like the thing that this movie does. It has like 9 different action sequences or something like that. So it's just like this unrelenting kind of like every few minutes there's another crazy thing going on. But where do you fall on it right now, as far as liking it or not?"
Yeah, so I'm looking here. It's like 50% on Rotten Tomatoes and like 90% user score. So
Wow.
people clearly really enjoy the movie, and I really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
But I went in with low expectations because of all this bad press.
Sure.
And I grew up in the '90s.
Yeah.
Like Schwarzenegger's Commando and like Terminator and Rambo, and like these are big buff dumb action heroes blowing stuff up with their grenades and their big machine guns. And um, I like those movies.
Yeah.
And I'm not ashamed to say that. I like big, stupid, silly action movies. And this is totally that.
Mhm.
One thing that surprised me about this movie is it's very funny.
Yeah.
The lot of little quick quips back and forth. I thought the script was really well done, really funny. And like you said, we'll get into the action sequences later. But overall, um, I really enjoyed it, and it was very reminiscent of like very big, stupid '90s action movies that I grew up with, and I enjoyed it very much. And like the toxic masculinity thing, I don't fully understand that. Maybe I need to plug back into what's going on in society, but there's some strong female characters in this movie,
Oh yeah, totally.
doing some really good work, and
Mhm.
I felt it was really well balanced. I don't get the hate. I really
Yeah.
don't. I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, oh, totally. And basically, a very broad synopsis for anybody is we have this character Ryan Gosling plays, known as Six. He's this like special super agent guy who works for this clandestine organization that basically picks people out of like death's row or going to be stuck in prison forever. And they're like, all right, you can. It's kind of Suicide Squad-esque, where it's like, come work for us. We'll get you out of prison, so you can kind of lead a life, but you're going to be doing stuff for us now. And he kind of gets embroiled in something that's maybe a little bit bigger than he originally thinks, and then ends up getting hunted by the United States government, but they have a hired hand in that of Chris Evans, who is this kind of crazy psycho man who is like, I will find and kill this person for you. It's not a problem. And we'll do it by any means necessary, which I think is the best way to have your villain be. Like, so, which I think sometimes, it must be fun for him because he's obviously been in the business for a long time and he has gotten to play villains in the past. But, coming off of just so much Captain America stuff and then finally getting to be like, I can finally just be evil and like not have to be like, what's the righteous choice? It's like, no. He's like, I will threaten everybody. I will kill everybody. So yeah, so if you like big action movies like that, I would say that this would be definitely worth your time. And again, one thing I love in action movies, Cory, is when I can appreciate the amount of money and time they put into this stuff. And they clearly did with this one. They really did that. And so if you're going into this, like Netflix has really been pouring money into a lot of their original stuff for a long time now, but this looks like something that they really wanted to premiere like in a theater and then also say like, yeah, you can watch it at home, but like if you have a cool theater setup at your house, this would be optimal. But yeah, Cory, any other like thoughts before we kind of jump into some of the action sequences specifically?
Yeah, I think this movie's gorgeous. Like you said, we'll get into some of the big set pieces. This movie looks really expensive. And yeah, I was hearing like, oh, it's just they rip off the hand-to-hand combat from Bourne Identity and the big globe-trotting spy thriller set pieces from Mission Impossible, and they're right. It totally feels that way. And I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. They do so many good, things right in this movie. The action scenes are so well done. And I really like Ryan Gosling as an action star.
Yeah.
He's not like a silent protagonist, but he's like a quiet one. He's not a loudmouth, which I think makes him kind of a menacing threat.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the movie Drive, where he plays the getaway driver.
No, but I've heard good things.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And he's basically this silent protagonist, action star, this guy that kind of jumps into these heroic requests, and I see a lot of that with the Gray Man as well.
Cool.
as Six. So the only other thing before we get into some spoiler stuff is went in with low expectations and came out very pleasantly surprised, and it's a really fun movie.
Yeah. Also, this is a PG-13 movie. I think it easily could have been R, but they held back on the gore or the violence in that respect, and then also
the swearing.
Yeah, the swearing. Yeah, there's definitely times in like the script you could tell they could have gone that way, but they're like, nope, we went a different direction. And I'm like, you know what? Good for them though. Like you're trying to appeal to a lot of people, but so I was like, okay, that's interesting, because I know they could have. There's a few moments where I was like, I was like, oh, that could have been much worse. Like, but there's still a few moments that make me legitimately grimace.
It's brutal for a PG-13 movie for sure.
It's brutal. Also,
there's some stabby McStab scenes.
Exactly. There. Oh, I love a stabby McStab. But I want to say this too before we get into spoilers. So for anybody out there who's still on the fence about this, I didn't realize how cut, and I should say jacked, Gosling got for this. Because there's one shot, like later on, where he's got his shirt off, and he's like, and you look at the dude, and he's got like all these scars and stuff, to kind of show his past. But I was like, oh my gosh, because like you couldn't tell before then, but like you see him, you're like, oh my god, he really got like crazily jacked for this. And they don't show it off too much, because I was like, sometimes that's kind of like the whole character is like, look at how macho man I am. But I was like, man, it's becomes very believable quickly that you're like, oh yeah, I mean, he's this big dude who's really well trained. Of course he's gonna annihilate people. You're like, makes sense. He's a scary guy, Mr. Gosling. But yeah, just whew, baby. I want to.
Chris Evans, he's no slouch either. He still looks pretty ripped, and just back to your point, he looks like he's having a lot of fun in this movie. As Lloyd, who's just this complete a-hole, narcissist, kind of maniacal, violent sociopath, right? Like that's his character. And I think there's a moment where Ryan Gosling's character Six refers to him as Lloyd, which is his name, and he says, "You're totally a Lloyd."
Yeah.
And I think he calls like a trash stash, I think is what he says.
Yep.
And just back to my other point, it's just this movie is just so playful and funny.
Yeah. It's a good time.
Yeah. So those are kind of my initial thoughts.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, Cory, if it's okay with you, I'm going to flip the old spoiler switch. So after I flip this, guys, we can say whatever we want now about the movie, and no one can get angry that we ruined everything. So are you ready, Cory?
I'm ready.
I got
Flip
this.
The switch.
I got it fixed recently, but the spoiler sparks still fly out once in a while. You're just gonna have to picture them because it. It was you blocked some of them. Oh my gosh, it was all a dream. That's what happened. This movie at the very end, Ryan Gosling wakes up and it was all a dream. No, I'm just kidding. Wouldn't that be horrible?
It's a sequel to Inception.
Exactly.
Chris Nolan. Yeah.
It's like my kids. Okay. So Cory, like I said, I don't want to break down every action sequence here, but I want to go through just a few that really stood out to me. And I think one thing that I really love about two or three of them early on is the use of color and light. And I know we were talking about this beforehand, but there's the first kind of fight that you have where totally subvert the expectation there, because you've got Six going into this like cool nightclub place, and he's got eyes on a target through like a glass floor, basically like an opaque glass floor, and he can see through his like the radar and his gun. And I was thinking, oh, cool, we're going to get some cool, like, glass, like, he's going to just light it up, and this guy's going to come falling down. But then a kid walks in the way, and he's like, I'm not doing that anymore, I'm going to do something different. And then you see him follow the group, this entourage, because he scares them to leave. He pulls the fire alarm, and he follows up behind this entourage of people, and he dispatches, like, 2 or 3 of them so quickly with a knife. And it's during like a New Year's Eve or like some sort of New Year celebration, and they end up tumbling outside this Mark and him and fighting in and amongst a bunch of fireworks going off, which felt very third act ending to me. Like in other movies, they would have been like, this is the end, where like our main villain and our main protagonist fight to the death. And I was like, nope, this is like the first thing. And they're fighting and all these fireworks are going off. It's super colorful. I was like, this is such a cool way to like start your movie. I was like, I'm immediately like, this is definitely different than what we normally get. And
it reminded me of a level from a Hitman game.
Dude, yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, very much so. And I know that you talked about this, and I liked it too, is that they're kind of fighting, and Six finally gets the guy's head over one of like the canisters, and, like firework goes off and like, kind of burns his face. And I was like, yeah, this is good. Like,
yeah, that was a cool moment, but like, bring it back to reality, that guy's head would have exploded.
Yeah, probably.
Like,
yeah, or the
we're in Bangkok, and it's like New Year's Eve fireworks, and these things like the biggest, greatest fireworks you've ever seen, and one of them like literally hits this guy in the face. But it was cool in an action scene moment. Yeah,
oh, very much so. And then we go later on, like there's a little fight where there's kind of like a flashback where Six is looking after his like mentor's granddaughter, is that what it is? And fights the guy, and there's kind of like, he has a flashlight, and you kind of see the flashlight swinging around. That's not as crazy cool though with the lighting as like the flare he uses in the airplane fight sequence, which also, again, I just felt like there was like a theme with color going on here for a little bit in their fight scenes, but really well choreographed, each and every one of these. And I was looking into this. It seemed like the Russos really loved the idea of Winter Soldier, like Captain America Winter Soldier in that story, and they wanted to kind of go further and farther with that. And that's what this feels like. Not like a Winter Soldier 2, but just like Winter Soldier amped up. Like, let's do everything we didn't or couldn't do in that movie. Does that kind of feel that way to you too?
Yeah, totally. And, back to that Bangkok nightclub scene where his plan A fails. He's got the rifle pointed up through the floor, as you mentioned. He just has to go and improvise. I'm a sucker for action scenes that are set in like a thumping nightclub where the music takes over the scene and there's clearly some violence happening, but you can't hear it. You can just see it. And there's just all these people like having the best time of their lives, oblivious to Ryan Gosling, like silently murdering. Like this it's and like it gives me goosebumps because it's so well done. And another director that does this really well is Michael Mann in Collateral with Tom Cruise.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Where he's wiping out those guys in the nightclub.
Just saw it again recently. It's good.
It's so good. Yeah. It's an all-timer. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that quick because the Russos did a fantastic job at that. And then, of course, yes, that bleeds into the firework fight scene. But yeah, the fight scene in the house that you mentioned, he's trying to do it quietly so the young girl doesn't hear. Back to your point about the flashlight, what I love about that is when the camera pulls out and you see that flashlight whipping back and forth. So yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, one thing I looked up or I had seen about kind of behind the scenes is that the Russos said that their action was always character driven first, and that they like to put their character in a weird situation and see how they would get out of it. So it kind of reminded me a little bit of like Dungeons and Dragons, where it's like they're the DM and they're like, all right, let's take this very like skilled player or these skilled players as a group and put them in a really bad situation. We all know to some degree they have to get out of it, but how are they going to do it in the most interesting way? And there's a few times when this happens because our protagonist he's very good at doing pretty much everything violent. We don't know exactly all of his training, but clearly he knows it all. But he does get tricked a few times or gets put in bad situations. He's not just walking through things. Like, things happen that he doesn't expect, and he has to overcome. And one of my favorite examples of that is probably the craziest action sequence in the whole thing, is that he gets himself, through a series of very crazy events, gets himself handcuffed to a bench in the middle of Prague or something like that. And at this time, Lloyd, who's now working, or Chris Evans, he's working with the United States government, has hired a bunch of different teams of bounty hunters to come and to kill him, because he's in, Ryan Gosling 6 is in possession of something very special. And besides just his great looks and the Ken doll joke, they made a Ken doll joke in this, which I was like, is that just promotion for the Barbie movie? But they basically all converge at this one moment. So you have all of these bounty hunters going for 6, and then you have the police showing up, because this has turned into a big event, and it goes straight up Grand Theft Auto, where all of them are shooting everybody. They're shooting at the police, they're shooting at civilians, they're shooting at each other, because there's money on the table. And you have this guy who doesn't have a gun on him right now, he's handcuffed to a bench, and I'm thinking that is very interesting predicament, precarious to put your protagonist in. I don't know if you thought that too, because I was like, oh, he'll break out of this, he'll be fine. He's there for a long time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how is he alive? So good. It's so good. So what did you think of that?
It was amazing, and so yeah, like you said with the Grand Theft Auto comparison, like the stakes could not be higher in this scenario, right? Because 6, played by Ryan Gosling, has information that is, off the charts. Like, they need to get him regardless of the cost, right? So yeah, I mean, you have guys dressed in riot gear with shields kicking open doors at every corner with like machine guns and rocket launchers and grenade launchers, and it mixes in with like some of the best car chase scenes I've seen in like a really long time. And the fact with the mix that, like, I was very lucky enough to travel to Prague with my parents last year.
So cool.
So like, I recognize some of the like drone shots oh, by the way, they do some amazing drone work in this movie. Crazy. I need to mention.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah.
And they did it with Michael Bay's Ambulance too. So I'm wondering if it's a new trend of. Anyways, we'll save drone talk for another day. But the cinematography in this movie is amazing. But yes, back to the handcuff scene. So well done. Balls to the walls. Loved it. Yeah, I really don't know what else to say. It's a movie you don't see too often. It's very much if the Russos were given $200 million to make a modern, globetrotting, ridiculous, over-the-top action movie. This is what you're getting here, and the Prague scene was a great example of that.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and it just goes on, and there's a whole train sequence, and there's Ana de Armas is in like a car speeding by, and it gets insane. It's really crazy. And the thing I love most, there's one moment where like the back of a truck flops down, and there's like a gun mounted there with a guy. And I'm like, oh, it's a minigun. They got to do a minigun. No, it was like a grenade launcher. And I was like, oh, this is different. I was like, thank you. This makes it interesting in a new way that we don't see as often in action films. Not saying they've never done that before, but it was just a fun time. And also, shout out quick to a brief action moment that could have been 6's, but they gave it to Ana de Armas. Is like, she runs pell-mell at a fortress with like a rocket launcher and takes out a ton of different people, and oh my gosh, it's so cool to watch, because you're like, oh, who is that? And like, it's her later on, and you're like, that was so cool. Like, people are shooting at her and she's just blowing up groups of them, and I'm like, this is she's video great. Game. I was like, this is amazing. I was like, this, and they all of them fight, especially when they get like hand-to-hand stuff. It's brutal. Stabby McStabby, you're totally right. There's plenty of that. There's just a lot. There's a lot to like here if you're an action fan. It's like they knew you came for action, and they're like, here's a 5-course meal of action. How do you like your action? Would you like some more action on top of your action? Well, we have some action for you. You're like, what would you like for dessert? Yeah. More action.
Right.
I really appreciated it, man. It just felt like not necessarily a throwback, but just like quintessential like style of this type of film that, I love my superhero stuff. Don't get me wrong. That is like one of the reasons I got into the business. But like, it's just kind of fun to watch something that is like is pseudo kind of superhero in this. And man, it's a fun time. It's such a popcorn flick. If you have Netflix and you like action at all, I think you're gonna like this. Like, I try to think about something I don't like, Corey. I don't know if there is. Like, I'm like,
yeah. I had to look up the actress. It's hopefully I'm not going to butcher this. Ana de Armas.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She plays Danny, and she was also in. I'm sorry. What was the latest Bond film called? No Time to Die.
No Time to Die.
Mm-hmm. She was great in that too, and she's great in this. And it's a fun movie, full of action, surprisingly funny, underrated, with a good runtime. I love Ryan Gosling, love Chris Evans. I love this movie, and I just heard today they announced a sequel and a spinoff.
Ah, okay, nice, cool. That's
so this must be doing very well for Netflix.
Maybe that's one of the reasons that secondary villain guy who was kind of beating them up and stabbed Six right through the hand. Maybe he'll be used for other things too, because he had a moment that I never see typically in action films, where he's fighting Ana de Armas, and he's basically like, he figures it out at one moment. He's like, these people are not honorable. He's like, here, you can just get out of here. Here's the thing that you want. Right. And I was like, oh my gosh, because like sometimes that would happen in an action film if they talked for like 20 seconds. And I was like, oh, that actually happened, because they kind of fight to a standstill, and then he's finally like, yeah. Here you go.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh, cool. He's like, I don't know. He's like, this is insane. He's like, these people are nuts. I was like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Does it have the class of the Mission Impossible movies? Probably not.
It's just different.
Is it? It's a little different. Is it as slick? Probably not. This is a little more trashy, in a good way. Yeah. Right. I for lack of better words, trashy is probably a little harsh, but I mean that in a good way.
Yeah.
And I don't know what else to say. I'm excited that this is becoming a franchise.
Yes.
And
I'm excited because like this is the type of thing that like gets me excited to like watch movies like this. And this is the type of thing I want to be in, Corey, because I look at this and I know it was hard. I've heard stories that it was really hard to make, but man, they're having some fun out there, dude. Like you got like, especially with that, the kind of like the budget you have, and also being like liberated in that like they can tell whatever story they want and do whatever they want with it. They don't have to be like, all right, we have to adhere to the comic or whatever else. And this is like a thing they made, and which is really cool. Which the writing team consists of one of the Russos and then the other folks who helped write Infinity War and Endgame. Is that what it is?
That's what I'm seeing on IMDb.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Because it's not both the Russos who wrote this. It's just one of them.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Who one of them does make a cameo at the end. I'm sorry.
I noticed that.
I haven't. Corey, I will make the distinction between them when I work with them, because right now, I don't. Until then, they will just be the Russos until I'd be like, oh, that's Joe. I'll be like, oh, that's Anthony. Yeah. Like Anthony's. I love him.
And before we wrap, one more shout out.
Yeah, please.
Billy Bob Thornton as Fitz.
Dude, when he showed up, I was like, is that Billy Bob Thornton? And there was like young Billy Bob Thornton, and then he's like throughout the rest of it, I'm like, oh, he's great. I can't think of her name, but there's that lady they go find later on who has a really cool moment, who's just retired. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah. Is it was her name Margaret in the movie, or is that the character's name? Elfie or something?
Something Woodward? Am I crazy about
Woodward.
Yes.
Woodard. Yeah, Woodard. Yes, there you go.
She's great. Yep. She's also in the beginning of Captain America Civil War, and she's the one who guilts Tony. If you remember, she has a very brief scene, but she's very good. So when I saw her in this, I was like, oh, cool. And like a lot of each character in this movie that you like, which is pretty much all of them, they all get a really cool moment, even if it's just one moment. And also go shout out to Jessica Henwick, who has the hilarious line of, we're all going to prison for this. I was like, oh my gosh, I laughed out loud at that, because I was like, yeah, you know what? You probably would all go to prison for like shooting up the entirety of Prague. I was like, I love it. That was so good. Corey, any final thoughts or closing thoughts here on The Gray Man?
No. No, I don't think so. I'm excited. I'm excited this is going to be a franchise. I'm curious to see the spin-offs, the sequel. Um, Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I don't get the hate. I thought it was very fun, and I thought it was very well balanced, and you should check it out.
Yes, I completely agree with everything Cory just said right there. Please check out The Gray Man, and if you do end up watching it, or you have seen it already, please let us know in the comments. I would love to hear what you guys think about this, because that's the interesting part for me, is to hear other differing perspectives. If you like it, let me know why. If you don't, also let me know why. I'm just curious. I swear Joe and Anthony have not paid me to ask and to get information for them. My buddies, Joe and Anthony, who are in the other room.
Checks in the mail.
Checks in the mail. No, that one day, oh my gosh. Yeah, they just look like they're having a good time. And you know what? Well deserved, guys. Because man, I still think back to Infinity War and Endgame. I'm like, how did you even... There's so many parts. Like, how did you put that together? Like,
so good. Infinity War is, oh man,
top tier superhero movie. My gosh.
Yes, indeed.
So
yes,
good.
indeed.
So good.
Yep. Agreed.
Cory, before we're completely done today, I know you had maybe a minute or two or something you want to say on Nope that just came out, the latest Jordan Peele feature film.
Sure. Yeah, I can touch on that briefly. I saw Nope. And this is Jordan Peele doing Aliens, basically. You know what? We'll keep it spoiler free.
Sure.
So yeah, Jordan Peele. Obviously he was a comedian, TV director, mainly rooted in the comedy world of television, primarily. Let's say that. He had his big breakout directorial debut with Get Out, which received like a Best Picture nomination, like right out the gate.
Oh, really?
And I loved Get Out, and it was a very creative horror movie that had a lot to say. And then he did his follow-up, which was Us, which I think was received a little less critically, but still good, And now he's got Nope, which is Jordan Peele coming out saying, I want to do the Spielberg thing, and so it's about a ranch outside of Hollywood that raises Hollywood horses. And so it's a family that raises horses for Hollywood. Okay. And something's a little off. There's a death in the family. Things are falling from the sky. And basically they are told that there was an airplane that accidentally dropped some belongings. And so it was raining stuff. Well, you come to find out that obviously that wasn't true. There's flying saucers. So this is Jordan Peele doing the Spielberg thing, right? The look to the sky with your imagination. This is big budget sci-fi. This is flying saucers. This is a lot of characters looking up into the sky with wonder. He's doing that thing.
Okay.
It also has a lot to say, obviously. It's a tribute to Black Westerns, which is great. And it's also about the society, our society, and the desire for the spectacle, right? Sure. Cameras are always rolling. We have to film everything. We have to broadcast everything. And it's very obvious that that's the message he's putting across here. He hires this this knockoff Geek Squad company to come and set up cameras on their ranch. So he wants to get this video. In the movie, minor spoiler, they call it, and I really like this. They say, we need to capture the Oprah moment. They say that over and over, which I found really funny. But some great performances. I'm going to butcher his name. I want to say, is it Daniel Kaluuya?
Ooh, I think you're right.
I know. I should know this. But some great performances. I think he's really stepped up as a fantastic cinematic director. I think he did a really good job of kind of pulling the camera out and showing these flying saucers in a real cinematic way that was very reminiscent of Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Sure.
Right? Old school Spielberg sci-fi, War of the Worlds. And that's kind of what he's doing. Did everything work? Not really. I could nitpick a couple things, but overall, I think he did a great job. There was a lot of tributes to like Tremors. Apparently, he's like a big fan of Tremors.
Oh, really? Okay.
And you can kind of see that when you're watching this. So it's Jordan Peele doing big budget sci-fi. He's messing around with aliens. There's a lot of Spielberg, a little bit of some Tarantino style characters and dialogue. It's very funny. I recommend it. It's very different from Get Out and Us in terms of tone and content. Okay. But overall, I really enjoyed it. If you like those old Spielberg movies, those kind of high sci-fi, look to the sky, kind of wonder things. I think J.J. Abrams played with that a little bit with like Super 8.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw Super 8, but
I did.
Okay.
A long time ago.
Yeah. So that's the vibe here.
Okay,
right?
Cool.
Obviously, there's some symbolism and stuff. There's some of that classic Jordan Peele stuff that you'd expect that I wouldn't dare spoil, because I think with this movie, I think I just wouldn't dare spoil some of that stuff. So one last thing I'll say is there's kind of a twist at the end to the aliens and the flying saucer that I didn't see coming, and it's very neat what they do.
Oh, okay.
With the alien ships themselves. So it's very good. Get out and see Nope. I enjoyed it. That's kind of all I have to say on that. Anything else would go into spoiler territory. So
okay. Excellent. Like the part where he wakes up at the end and he figures out it's just a dream.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep saying that until it happens again in a thing, Cory, in a big budget thing, and I'll be like, I was right. Without even seeing it.
Right.
Well, cool. Thank you.
Where are you at with Jordan Peele and his catalog? Did you see Get Out? Did you see Us?
I feel bad. I've heard they're great. I am not into horror, even if it's just like it's like talking about society. It would stay with me. I'm very susceptible to that kind of thing. So I'd be up all night and the next night and the next night. I know I'm a grown man, but inside still a terrified child. I've got a scary thing in my house, Cory. You know what it's called? It's called a mirror. Okay.
Oh, come on. I think Us is probably his scariest film. Get Out is manageable, and I think this is if you're not into horror, I think you would still enjoy this very much, and you would sleep just fine at night, because it's did you see War of the Worlds or Close Encounters?
Oh yeah, a long time ago. Yeah, War of the Worlds. Yeah, okay. Sure. It's got Tom in it. I have to. If it's got Tom in it, I'm in.
That's true. Fair enough.
Like Flynn, that guy's running as people get turned to just ash and dust by the tripods. Just right.
Yeah.
Freaky stuff. Cool. Well, there we go. We got a Nope review in there too. Isn't that excellent? Thank you, Cory. I appreciate that.
Get out and see Nope. See Gray Man. Two really good movies.
Yes, and like we said with Gray Man, with Nope, if you have seen it or are planning to see it, let us know what you thought of it down in the comments after you have, because I would love to hear if you're like, Jimmy, you can watch it, you'll be fine. Or be like, Jimmy, no, don't watch it, you'll be up for nights. Don't listen to Cory, he's messing with you. Jordan told him to do so. No, I don't think, this one didn't look as scary. Like Us, there's a big poster over at Universal where it's just the lady holding like the scissors, and I'm like, nope, that's not for me.
Us is scary.
No, thanks.
It's scary.
I thought it was just about, I was going in there, I thought it was a historical reenactment of the United States through the years, but it didn't, there weren't the period, that was, see, that's a little joke. Anyway, Cory, thank you for being on today to talk about these two action-y movies. I don't know if Nope's really an action movie, but still, big blockbuster films, as it were. I appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, thank you, Jimmy.
Of course. And everybody else, thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate it. If you want, you can interact with me down in the comments or via Twitter, or if you're listening, just through the various like Spotify and iTunes, leave a review if you'd like, and I can find that as well. And a huge, huge, huge thank you to our patrons who make all this stuff possible. I love you, patrons. You're fantastic. But you guys don't have to do any of that. I just appreciate you giving us a listen today. And until next time, just remember to adapt and overcome. Bye-bye.